Hello and welcome to FT NextGen. I'm Elizabeth Pears, a news editor here at the FT, and today I'll be chatting with my colleague Virginia Stagni, the founder of the FT Talent Challenge, who is leading some incredibly innovative work here. We'll be talking about a subject that is close to both of our hearts, the future of the media and the importance of bringing young, diverse voices into this space. But first of all, some housekeeping. If you'd like to submit questions, you can do so via the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll try to address as many of these as we can before our time runs out. And if you have any thoughts about the conversation, please feel free to share them on social media using the hashtag FTNextGen. So let's get started. And hello, Virginia.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me. Thank you,
Oh,
everyone.
no,
Hi.
I'm really excited to talk to you. We've never actually met in person because of the pandemic, but I actually genuinely do love the work that you're doing, and I think it's really going to drive the FT forward. And I think, first of all,
You.
whenever we talk, we have conversations about diversity. There are lots of differing, opinions and definitions. What does it mean to you in the broadest sense?
So thank you so much, Elizabeth, for this question, because I think we never start from our own personal definition of diversity. And to me, is not just about demographics, it's not just the ethnic background and
Mm,
gender. I think it's so much more. I think diversity is really that unique mix of experiences that every one of us can take to basically to the table. It can be either
mm,
in the workplace as much as in our individual life. And I
mm.
think it's really the way we are seeing each single individual experience as a new way to open others' minds. And this is the way I'm seeing diversity.
Yeah, I think that's a great point actually, because, for example, I do a lot of work around race, and you can have, a group of 10, black people in a room, and they're all going to have different experiences. There's always diversity of thought, and I think that's really what we're always trying to aim for. And I guess the next question for me is, why do media outlets need to engage, young, diverse audience? Is there a business case, and is there a social case?
Yeah, I think definitely, media and the news outlets, we are seeing that they want to be a global voice. They want to be vocal about being innovative. But every time my question has been how you can do so if you're not changing your workforce, if you
Mm,
are not changing the people actually that are making, the next generation of readers and users. So I think thanks to segmentations and being
mm,
able to profile our readers and
mm,
users,
mm,
we can
mm,
understand so much more about the
mm,
younger audiences out
mm,
there. There is definitely a need, Elizabeth, I think, to engage with a different target. And
mm,
as we were saying, a diverse target, that it doesn't
mm,
just mean different age groups, it means
mm,
different interests and different
mm,
habits. There is
mm,
definitely, I think to be a leading media company today, you need to be inclusive and including diverse teams into
mm,
your workforce, from the news
mm,
desk to the data
mm,
analysts that
mm,
can really talk and understand who
mm,
are the next generation of readers. And
mm,
I think another point here is that millennials will make the 75% of the workforce by
mm,
2025, which
mm,
means that if you are not able to speak, not just speak their language, but
mm,
really adapt
mm,
to habit, you are
mm,
missing a huge part of the market. So I
mm,
believe that I love the last part of your question about the business
mm,
case,
mm,
because we always talk about diversity as most of the time an anthropological issue or a
mhm,
nice to have, while
mhm,
let's take business at the end of the day. We in this FT panel, so let's try
mm,
to give a bit of numbers. I think that
mm,
research has been showing in the past few years that there is really a statistical relationship that is significant
mhm,
between diversity and innovation.
mhm,
So media is really a place where the most diverse enterprises are successful
mm,
in terms
mm,
of the diversity of their teams, because it has been measured that the more diverse is your workforce, the
mm,
better is your revenue mix. So just the
mm.
two numbers, and then I'm done. So I'm not gonna get boring here, but
I like numbers.
Mc- but McKinsey is a business case. We have to. So
Mm,
McKinsey has been showing us 2 points that I thought I wanted really to bring
mm,
here. One is that if you have a significant diverse workforce in terms of ethnicity,
mm.
these companies are 35% more likely to outperform all their
Wow.
competitors. When it comes to gender diversity, because of course we
Mm,
said diversity is
mm,
really a lot of different aspects, but when it
mm,
comes to diversity, every 10% increase in gender diversity is bringing EBIT to increase
mm,
3.5%. This is
mm,
why I think there is really a business case that can be, of course, applied to media that do
mm,
need to innovate, to speak to
mm,
the right audience, but this
mm,
can be implemented in any other industry and market.
mm. And you said something, I just wanted to pick up on it. You talked about readers and users. Is there a differentiation for you?
Yes, there is, I believe, because
Mm,
in the way we have been always thinking about readers in the kind of
mm,
mass medium ecosystem, where there was one
mm,
message to the mass, that group
mm,
of very identifiable people,
mm,
these people were passively receiving the content. So it's
mm,
kind of like reading it, maybe, only in one format, maybe the paper.
mm,
But now,
mm,
because of all the different media outlets, the different
mm,
formats, the different
mm,
platforms we are using, people
mm,
are using the content. That's why we need
mm,
to have this change of terminology, where
mm,
people, especially the younger audience, is used to pick and choose. And this
mm,
picking information and
mm,
picking the brand that is giving
mm,
you relevant information is really
mm,
what's making not just the terminology, but the whole business model change.
mm. And that leads me actually quite nicely to my next question. In terms of changing the offer for young and diverse audiences, is it about the tech and how young people access news? Um, I used to work at BuzzFeed, for example, and there was definitely an emphasis on putting the news where young audiences were. Or is it about changing the breadth and the variety of the content? Or is the answer going to be a little bit of both?
I think it's gonna be a little bit of both. The first part is definitely younger audiences are used to quick, responsive, and detect, and the
Mhm,
platform needs to be responsive, meaning that you
mm,
need, as a media and especially as a
mm,
news outlet, you need to
mm,
meet those basic technical needs. But
mm,
from the other perspective, that I think it goes a bit more deeper in what journalism should be standing for, what media should
mm,
be standing for. There is definitely, we need to start from the assumption that the habits are quite different. The thing I
mm,
just said, the pick and choose, the
mm,
branding, the kind of
mhm,
like information overload younger
mm,
audiences and
mm,
are used to now.
mhm,
It really brings, I think, media and especially journalism in a need to adapt. But
mm,
here, I think is important a point. We don't have to try to simulate some
mm,
social media dynamics, because
mm,
otherwise you'll end up being a bad copy of a social
mhm,
media platform. You don't want that. I think it's understanding the new prospect audience,
mm, mhm,
that can be, of course, an audience to acquire. So
mm,
it's
mhm,
an interesting new wave of users, as we
mm,
were saying, but
mm,
making that journalism, that quality journalism, relevant specifically to that audience. So
mhm,
younger
mm,
audiences do choose their information provider. I
mm,
think we
mhm.
need to be there, make it very clear what we are standing for as a news
Okay.
outlet and as a.
Mm. And in your experience, are there any topics and themes that, younger audiences are quite responsive to? I mean, if you wanted, for example, to, really sort of, without giving away business secrets, if you really wanted to engage an audience, what things should you be doing?
I think I'll say, first part of the answer in terms of topics. I think
Mm,
you need, first of all, to research the
mm,
audience better. And
okay.
if there is one thing that we tend to do, I think, and I've
Mm,
seen we are
mm,
doing it,
mm,
especially in the journalism, is like we think about the younger audience as a big chunk of under
mm.
40 people, and
Yeah.
the the needs of a
mm,
16 years old are quite different
mm,
from the needs of a 35 years old. So I think,
yeah.
don't overlook that target and go
Mm,
deeper in understanding your
mm,
persona, your
mm,
audience. And then, of course, in terms of topic for your question, I think
mm,
definitely we are seeing, the kind of like future of work,
mm,
career, and
mm,
anything that is career related
mm,
and the
mm,
future of the workplace is really relevant as much as
mm,
sustainability. I think,
mm,
just to go back to the user's point,
mm,
as a younger audience that needs to find your content relevant, he needs to
mm,
use it as well for upskilling their career. If I'm
mm,
thinking about what to me journalism
mm,
means, has
mm,
been my way to upskill myself. Maybe
mm,
things that I did not have a chance to explore through school and
mm,
university, and I never heard of. Thanks to
mm,
journalism quality information, I could
mm,
be ready for an interview, for example. And I
mm,
think here it's really important that we make that without any, being, frightened by we are used as content,
mm,
but it's more like how we can be a bridge between
mm,
career, workplace, and, for example, students. And I think
mm,
this is really when you turn useful, and that's again why the
mm.
users.
Yeah. And you also mentioned just, I guess the workforce, and I think part of
Yeah.
changing the culture of an organization is you start changing the people. And, in journalism, we kind of sometimes admit that we are terrible managers. And so sometimes what we find is we hire, really young, dynamic people with fresh ideas, new ways of thinking, the kind of people that ask, well, why do we always do it this way when we can do it that way? And sometimes just one of the natural ways that sometimes people mentor is to try and create mini versions of yourself, but then of course you lose precisely what makes a younger hire so valuable. Is there anything that frustrates you about the way that journalism kind of inducts the younger workforce into an organization?
I believe the first point is again thinking that we are all younger and our younger audience, while we
Okay.
have, it's like the first point about diversity is like the
Mm,
mix of experiences. And I
mm,
think as well, not missing and I think not pushing enough for the cross
mm,
mentorship point. I think
okay.
it's important that we can learn from digital
Mm,
natives as the
mm,
younger hires, as a
mm,
bit more senior leaders, and it
mm,
should be a two-ways conversation. I'm
mm,
here specifically referring, for example, at Southern Europe media
mm,
outlets or generally companies
mm,
where, again, there was your point, Elizabeth, of like,
mm,
come here and tell me how I do. These social media, shall we go
mm,
to TikTok or like Snapchat?
mhm.
And like, you should have all the answers. And I think it's like,
Mm,
what you want to achieve out of this. Let's make this
mm,
as relevant as other business
mm.
cases in our
Yeah,
company, and
yeah. I
make
think,
them.
yeah, authenticity is absolutely key. And I think just like you said, it's harking back to your values, and so that it feels as you intend it to feel. So I
Yeah.
guess now what I'd really like to do is to turn a little bit to the FT Talent Challenge. Can you tell me what inspired you to found it?
So, as I was mentioning, like I discovered the FT thanks to school and university
Mm,
that I offered the subscription for free. But I always had this question of like, who is behind the FT? Maybe other
mhm,
media outlets were kind of
mhm,
good at putting a
mm,
face near
mm,
their content, and
mm,
I never
mm.
connected it really to a human. It was more the information either were available on my e-learning website, as many
Yeah.
maybe of the audience have experienced, but
Mm,
who is the FC? And so I
mm,
think once I was researching a bit more about the Financial Times due to my
mm,
dissertation, and
mm,
I saw such a gap between my
mm.
perception of the FT as the
Right.
authority, the elitist
Mm,
place. And
mhm,
then when I had the chance to speak to some experts from the FT, I
mm,
completely had a very different perception of
mm,
that place. So it started as my intention, and what
mm,
made me inspired is like I
mm,
had this opportunity to get the FT doors opened thanks to
mhm,
my dissertation and a few
mm,
business leaders that were good at welcoming me. But what if
mm,
other people do not have that proactive act? Let's say,
mhm,
of coming
mhm,
into a company and wanting to know
mm,
you. If you want to
mm,
stay relevant to the younger audience, you
mm,
can't just I believe offer your content and then give it away and don't
mm,
really make a relationship with that audience. That is
mm,
really, what you were saying about authenticity, the human
mm,
content, and human
mm,
connection. And then this FT Talent Challenge
mm,
journey started in
mm,
2018.
mm,
Basically, can we open the door of
mm.
our organization and
Yeah.
ask the younger audience
Mm,
what they would expect from the FT, but
mm,
also how we can shape the future of
mm,
journalism together.
mm,
And
mm,
so it's a kind of hackathon experience that then we
mm.
built since then.
And in practical terms, how does it work?
So it works that we have different editions where
Mm,
we are welcoming people from all over the world.
mm,
I think the kind of innovation here in terms of
mm,
addressing diversity
mm,
is the way
mm,
we are recruiting people. Of
mm,
course, the CV is required, but
mm,
it's not about the university badge, it's about the
mm,
experience you're bringing.
mm,
So we built
mm,
software that can
mm,
really
mm.
understand the person that comes in
Oh, wow.
through
Mm,
IQ tests, personality tests, and
mm,
it doesn't really matter if you have a degree or not. What we want to
mm,
see is your passion for a
mm,
certain industry, because of course now
mm,
we have been
mm,
doing and we are still doing the
mm,
kind of
mm,
FT owned
mm,
challenges, but we
mm,
are diversifying it for different industry. How does
mm,
it work? If you get in,
mm,
you come to the FT
mm,
and you challenge the future of news
mm,
specifically
mm,
or other
mm,
industries. Out of this
mm,
experience is
mm,
an upskilling journey, let's say.
mm,
So you get a lot of mentors and panels.
mm,
Is all for free for the
mm,
participants. I want
mm,
this to be very clear. We try to be as inclusive as possible
mm,
in terms of
mm,
diversity. We are
mm,
making virtual editions as much as
mm,
face-to-face ones. But the
mm,
most important part is that this is a platform. So it's
mm,
giving younger talent that I
mm,
like to say that most of them are kind of diamonds in the rough. And our
mm,
job as a
mm,
media and as
mm.
a powerful news outlet is
Yeah.
giving these people the right platform finally and the
Mm,
way to shine and
mm,
to make other companies as much as the
mm,
FT see
mm,
talent and then of
mm,
course lead to some new hires.
mm,
So
mm,
it's a new way of hiring and
mm,
finding new talents from
mm,
very diverse backgrounds and all over the
mm,
world. So
mm,
it's a new way to embracing change in our
mm.
industry.
Fantastic. And you also mentioned something that's really interesting. I think it's about access, and we know that the Financial Times, offers free subscriptions to universities and some schools. I think you have to correct me because I'm still quite new here. But I think the point of access is so important because the FT, we're behind a paywall, and a lot of organisations are heading that way. And if we know young people who are studying, they don't have as much disposable income. If we don't provide that access, there's a risk that they're just going to be kind of locked out of the news, and then therefore not able to inform themselves. Do you think that's something that more organisations need to be considerate of?
I definitely think so. I think it's accessibility, but also informed accessibility.
Mm, mm,
Accessibility is key. I think just giving out the content for free, let's say, it can be useful, but again, I think you're not as inclusive as you could
mm,
be because I
mm,
think we need to make these people that are getting access
mm,
understand how
mm,
useful that can
mm,
be for
mm,
their
mm,
career, for their research, or just to
mm,
be an informed citizen. So definitely, the answer is yes. More and more
mm.
media outlets should
Yeah.
push for getting to schools.
And we have tons and tons of questions that I'm just looking at, and I want to try and get
Yeah.
some in. Here's a good one. So, what are some of the key challenges for minorities trying to enter publishing and the wider media? So, the key challenges for minorities specifically.
I think if you are just looking at most of the time
Mm,
the little me, as you were saying,
mm,
when you're
mm,
hiring, you tend not to have, you are unconsciously biased when you
mm,
are hiring. So I
mm,
think you need to have opportunities like this FT Talent Challenge, but it's not
mm,
just the only one. There are other media
mm,
that are doing kind of similar
mm,
activities. I think
mm,
the key challenges is like, as it's still new, these
mm,
way new diverse voices and younger voices and voices from
mm,
minorities into
mm,
newsrooms, I think
mm,
we need to have a specific and different path that facilitates the people rather
mm,
than their CV to be
mm,
prioritized. communities. So
Mm.
I
I,
think new way of hiring is really
mm.
important.
Okay. And quite quickly, do you have any thoughts on affirmative action? So, like you said, making sure that these CVs get to the top.
I think in terms of like is you're saying like things that we have to do is
Mm,
not definitely just ring fencing places, because then we are going into the quotas reasoning.
mm,
I think it's more like giving people the platform to
mm,
join an ecosystem that is felt as not welcoming of diversity. But once you get into the FT, you can see how the perception, I think, is different from outside and inside. But I think we are still building, and this is just a first step of the FT Talent Challenge, a bridge between
mm,
new communities, younger people, and connection as well with local communities, and the future of journalism, and how the our basically our newsroom and our news outlet needs to look like. It's not just about the newsroom, it's about all the other different departments understanding and ontologically having
mm,
diversity inside,
mm,
to then deliver a new global
mm,
voice that will be the FT
mm,
of the future.
mm. Oh gosh, now, Virginia, I just can't believe we're really getting warmed up and the session's come to an end. And I don't
Yeah.
think they're going to give me any time, but there are so many other questions that we could ask. We could talk about this forever. But thank you so much for your time today. It's clear that you're passionate, and I'm really pleased that you're here. So I look forward
Oh,
to the
thank you
work
so
that you
much.
do over the coming years. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And maybe just one very little thing. I
Mhm,
am I am the kind of example that you can bring, I think, diversity into with these activities into the
mm,
media. So it's not just about the top-down approach, but it can
mm,
be a bottom-up, younger
mm, mm.
employees helping the organization in really shaping the future of our industry. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, guys.